What's going on, everybody? Sergey from MMA Soap Opera here. Hope you're all having a great week. And we are only about 7 days away from UFC 308, which is gonna be one of the biggest cards of this year. There are some incredible fights over there, especially the two main fights. We're gonna cover that card in upcoming videos during this week. But before we jump to UFC 308, I want to discuss the previous UFC fight card that just happened during this past week. I also want to talk a little bit about Francis Ngannou, and I also want to talk about Umar Nurmagomedov and Merab-Dvalishvili. Hold on, not Merab-Dvalishvili, actually Song Yadong, because that's the next fight of Umar. And we gotta talk about this, man, because I think that this thing is getting way more complicated than it has to be. But if you are new to this channel, what we're doing on MMA Soap Opera is that we're talking all things UFC, MMA, all the drama in the background, hence the name, MMA Soap Opera, because that's what it is. So if you are into all that, welcome. Make sure to hit subscribe and ring the bell so that you don't miss any upcoming videos. And with all that, let's jump to today's topics. Alright guys, so we just had a Fight Night Hernandez versus Pereira. Overall, it was an meh event, I would say. There was 0 knockouts this time, and I'm really wondering if this conspiracy theory about the new gloves has something to do with that. The new gloves were introduced on what? UFC 300, right? So that's like, what, 7 months ago? Something like that. I think it's a little bit too early to make any conclusions about whether or not these new gloves are making a bad impact on the fights or not. So we'll see about that in the future. We'll talk about that in the future for sure. However, even though this fight night was a little bit mad, there were still some great fights, so let's talk about those. So in the prelims, the hands down the best fight was of course Brett Katona versus Jean Matsumoto. And then on the main card, apart from the main event, we're gonna get to that, was Darren Elkins versus Daniel Pineda. Both of the fights were barn burners, and especially the latter one, that one got fight of the night bonus. So congratulations to all fighters, even though Pineda, he actually called it a career after the fight. He threw the gloves in, and man, it was a little bit sad because I thought that he fought his ass off. But yeah, man, Daniel Pineda, thank you very much for the great performances in the Octagon, and a massive congratulations on a real respectable career, man. Alright, and now let's talk about the main event of the evening, which was of course Anthony Hernandez versus Michel Pereira. And I gotta say, that fight was super exciting. So Pereira, of course, he was on 8-fight winning streak, and I gotta say, he looked incredible during the first couple of minutes of the fight. Really aggressive, super slick, his movement was mwah! However, all that led to him emptying his gas tank really early, and basically he was done after the first round. So we really have to give Hernandez his props, because what he did was that he weathered the storm. Let's be honest, he had to survive the first couple of minutes because Pereira was extremely aggressive. And then Hernandez basically systematically shut down Pereira, which led of course to the 5th round stoppage. So yeah, man, really great fight, super exciting fight overall, and I think actually that Hernandez was a little bit invisible in the past. I really hope that this fight is gonna give him a little bit of traction, and that the UFC is gonna hopefully give him some top 10 fighter next, because I really think that after this performance he deserves it. Alright, so that was basically it for this UFC fight night, but there is one more fight that I want to mention, which was of course the first fight of the night in the prelims, Robelis Dispay versus Austin Lane. And man, I think that this is a really great example where super scary Olympic medalist taekwondo martial artist fights against an average MMA fighter. Like, you can tell that Robelis was pretty much clueless once the fight got on the ground. Gets taken down super easily, gets dragged into the deep waters, and even though Austin Lane didn't really look that amazing in the fight, yeah, he basically dominates him. Anyways, just a confirmation that the hype train was derailed completely. Alright, enough talking about the UFC Fight Night card. Of course, there was another massive event in the world of MMA, which was of course, man, Francis Ngannou's comeback. This was something that we've been waiting for a real long time, and it finally happened. What can I say? Francis and his story, of course, incredibly inspiring. How he fled his country, how he was risking his life to get to France. Then of course he's getting discovered by the MMA coach in Paris, he's getting to UFC, he's making a massive splash. Him eventually leaving and going after his dreams in the world of boxing. Of course he had 2 fights and we know how that went. And of course we knew that after the couple of boxing matches he would eventually have to go back to MMA. And it just had his PFL debut against Renan Ferreira. I gotta be honest, I never heard of this dude, but looking at the pictures he looked terrifying. He was even bigger than Francis, which is a super scary thing to even think about. But yeah, man, Francis Ngannou looked amazing in that fight, and he even got some props from none other than Jon Jones. I think that the only thing that is taken away from this win is the fact that when he was doing the ground and pound, there were some shots that landed on the back of his head. I just watched a video by Michael Bisping who said that he thinks that those punches were actually not completely to the back of the head, but more on the side, so that it was legal. I don't know, man, didn't look very legal to me. But regardless, Pereira wasn't answering any of those shots anyway, and I actually think that the referee could have stopped the fight way earlier. So yeah, man, Francis Ngannou gets the job done in a spectacular fashion. But yeah, one thing that stood out actually to me the most about this fight wasn't just the performance, which was of course great, but the fact that Francis Ngannou once again was able to overcome some immense pressure and adversity. Of course, we know that Francis has suffered a loss of his son, which of course is only adding to the story of Francis Ngannou. And yeah, man, I think that once again Francis Ngannou is showing us how massive heart he has, and I'm a big fan for that, man. Like watching him basically being on the brink of breaking down at the end of the fight and being in tears and just talking about this win, what it meant for him, how he's dedicating this win to Kobe, to his son, of course. Yeah, that just really got me emotional as well. Commiserations, Francis, but also a congratulations on an incredible comeback to the sport of MMA, and I really can't wait to see what is next for you. Alright guys, let's get our energy back up again and let's talk about Umar versus Song Yadong. So of course there's a lot of talk about Merab apparently ducking Umar. I don't think that that's the case at all. Merab had some back and forth with Sean O'Malley. They're talking about how they're gonna run it back and do a rematch in like November or December. That is definitely not gonna happen because Sean O'Malley just had surgery. But that opened up this whole discussion about Merab-Dvalishvili apparently ducking Umar, which I don't think is the case at all. I actually just watched a video by The Weasel where he's talking about O'Malley and how he's not deserving of the rematch. I also disagree with that. I think the problem is that we don't really have defined rules about when the champion deserves an immediate rematch. In my opinion, if the champion has defended his belt at least once, that's when he's deserving an immediate rematch for the belt. In my opinion. Okay, so in this video, The Weasel is talking about Merab talking to O'Malley instead of calling out Umar, which he should. And The Weasel is saying, what is stopping Merab to fight Umar in November or in January if he's calling out O'Malley again? Yep, that is a very valid question, of course, since we know that Umar is the next deserving contender for the belt. But I think that explanation is fairly obvious, and it's not that Merab is ducking Umar necessarily, it's just the fact that Merab has already prepared for O'Malley. He already knows how to defeat O'Malley. He already defeated him once. So it's much easier for him to run it back with Sean O'Malley and just get one more win and defend the belt. Umar is the toughest fight for anyone in this division, so he needs time to prepare for Umar Nurmagomedov. He doesn't need that much time to prepare for O'Malley though, so I kinda understand that he's talking to Sean O'Malley and that he's trying to get the rematch already right now. But I gotta say, if the Umar is not the next fight for the belt, like I talked in the previous video, I still think that it should be Figgy. I already explained that in one of the previous videos, so feel free to check that out in here. But yeah, man, Umar is fighting Song Yadong instead. Massive props to Song Yadong for taking that fight in the first place, but of course we know why he's doing that, because if he wins against Umar, this is gonna basically secure that the next fight is going to be for the belt. But yeah, man, I'm really curious what is gonna happen with Davis and Figueiredo as well. And just in general, this division has a lot of stuff happening right now, and it's kind of exciting to follow it. Alright guys, this is it for today's video. I hope that you liked it. If you did like it, make sure to hit like. If you have any thoughts or opinions on the topics that we discussed today, or if you maybe disagreed with something that I said, let me know in the comment section down below. I'm gonna do my best to answer to all of you. And if you haven't subscribed yet, make sure to do that, guys. There's a lot of exciting content coming in the following days, especially because we have UFC 308. So we're gonna be talking about Topuria versus Holloway, Rob Whittaker versus Khamzat Chimaev. Oh god, I'm so pumped! But yeah, this was it for today. Thank you very much for watching, guys. This was Sergey from MMA Soap Opera, because that's what it is.